Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Photo Notes. Happy New Year. This is our first video of 2022, and we're really pleased to have you. My name is Tony Colangelo, and as per usual, I'm here with my good friend, Wayne Capilli.
How you
Happy New
doing?
Year, sir.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I hope your year has started off really well.
Really well. But then,
Yeah?
yeah, 2021 didn't really end. It just went from 2021 to 2022, and here we are.
Anyway, so today, Wayne, we're going to talk about something that we've had a few requests for from our viewers, and that is transitioning, and maybe some of our, just getting into this field relatively recently, transitioning from HDR into sort of, how do we get more into using flash? Are there steps that I can take to get from HDR to sort of like a full flash ambient blend? And I think that that's a great topic that we can help out a lot of our viewers, particularly some of the newer shooters, and is making that transition, right?
Absolutely. And it's HDR works. Actually, HDR works very, very well. Taking the lightest and darkest areas and putting them together, it seems very logical. And but what happens is when you take all that dynamic range and squeeze it all together, you literally are crushing all the tones and the colors together. So HDR sometimes could be a little foggy. They're sharp, but they're still kind of a like a fog over them that we want to show how to get.
Yeah, I call it a muddiness. When I was learning about HDR, that's what Scott Hargis called it. He called it muddiness. And actually, I think to highlight what we're going to do today, you've already got some images in layer stacks in Photoshop, and your top layer is in fact an HDR.
This is a in-camera HDR from my Sony A6300. So I actually didn't use a computer to do the HDR. The camera actually takes the images and puts them together and puts out it crushes the whites, crushes the highlights, it lifts the shadows, and it gives this as a file. So this actually is not done in the computer. This is done in camera.
Yeah, but the principles are the same though, right? In terms of doing that crunching that you talked about, and essentially is taking all of this information and putting it through an algorithm. Because whether it's in camera or a bit of software to help you do HDR, the telltale signs are always the telltale signs as far as I'm concerned. And we see some of them here. So some of the major color casts in the bottom left quadrant on those chairs, we have a lot of blue and a lot of cyan. We have a lot of muddiness on the walls, particularly in the far hallway there. We tend to see a lot of muddiness in the wall ceiling and wall joints. So this, if all the stars are aligned and you got perfect light on any given day, HDR works great. But in a situation like, what was that?
No, HDR works great when everything's aligned. HDR is perfect.
But if as you said earlier, man, if you've got some high dynamic range situation out there, where the difference between the brightest thing in the shot and the darkest thing in the shot, if you've got many stops in between those two, then HDR becomes a little bit more challenging.
Right. And another thing that adds to the challenge of HDR is if you could take a look at the colors here, yes, the foreground is kind of a blue, and the area in the kitchen, it's kind of a yellow. So what happens is the colors have actually shifted, that they aren't the real colors that we would be dealing with. They actually are yellows into oranges, and the blues are blues into cyan, which makes it very difficult to color correct.
So I tell you what, in terms of, you've got a couple of flash layers there. Why don't we start there in terms of showing folks your flash layers and how you pulled those together.
Okay, so my flash layer is I put a flash above the table, and there's also another flash on the kitchen counter off to the right. So the light is coming directly from the wall to those cabinets over there.
Right.
What I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that I had nice, even, broad lighting to get that wall right.
Right.
And also, the reason why I have a flash above the table is because as we blend it, I'm assuming that there is a window in front of this chair. So I don't want to put my flash in front of by the camera to light the table. To light that chair, because there is no window behind me. So I'm actually kind of putting the lights so it will make sense of where the shadows fall when we blend everything.
So in other words, you're wanting to almost replicate, or at the very least mimic, the directionality of the incoming light.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, don't you have a second flash? Yeah. Where's your second? There it is. Okay.
And I have a second flash layer. So this is just, I moved it so I can easily take that flash out.
Right. So you're going to mask one stand out by using the other flash layer.
Yep. So I'm going to take a broad, soft brush at 100%, and I'm simply going to just draw out this stand.
Right, because you to this layer you applied a white mask, and you're using a black brush to conceal essentially that light stand. Yes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
So from here, we're going to turn on. We're going to turn on the HDR layer, and let's blend it. Just we're not going to do any custom matching. Let's just see what happens if we just take the flash layer and blend them together. It takes out a lot of the cast, and because we have these nice shadows from the flash, they kind of open up that the HDR layer.
Yeah, because to me, in my mind, Wayne, I got to tell you something. That's probably the easiest way to transition from HDR and getting into the world of using off-camera flash. Is certainly what I did, because I was intimidated to hell by using flash. Mm-hmm. So I would take my HDR output layer, and I would then have a flash layer. And then for most of the images that I would submit to my agent clients, I would just do a straight opacity blend the way that you just did there. And I would submit a photo like this. It's much, much cleaner than the HDR layer. And it was quick and easy, and it's just a few seconds to do the opacity slider there.
Okay, we have this. And what we're going to do is we're going to do Command-Shift-Option-E. And that takes all the layers and puts it on a single layer. So now this is its own little thing.
Right. So that's all the blending, everything that you've done so far.
And so what happens is this is our original HDR thing.
Yeah.
So what happens is when we did that, see how the area in the hallway kind of is now darker.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is we have the original, and we have the blended area, which we put together. We're going to take another mask, and we're going to take a really big brush.
Yeah.
And we're with low opacity, like 40%. We're just going to open that up. So
you're bringing in some of that brightness now that we had in the hallway.
Yeah. And then what we'll do is we'll take something. We're going to sample something a little neutral.
Yeah.
We're going to change our brush mode to color. We're going to turn the opacity down to like 20%. And we're simply going to take out a little bit of that yellow out of there.
Right. So you're using the white from the ceiling to color correct the yellow in the hallway.
Right. So now we have this. And that actually worked. That actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, to my mind, that's a deliverable shot. I mean, if you wanted to go above and beyond, you might do a hue and saturation slider and reduce the blues and cyans.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, that's way better than the HDR shot you originally had. So that's one way to do it. So we have a couple of different approaches. If you're just starting out with HDR blending, or using HDR and wanting to incorporate a little bit of flash, that's the way to do it, I think, is really to have your HDR layer above your flash layer, or you can do it the other way around. Either way, at the end of the day, just a straight opacity blend takes the best of the flash layer and kind of nullifies some of the worst of the HDR layer. And then if you wanted to take an extra level, you can do what Wayne did and do sort of selective corrections. And I think that's a really great way to start moving away from HDR only. What do you think, Wayne?
Yeah, and it's not moving away from HDR. It's actually taking your HDR exposure and just kind of getting better color and getting better saturation and better detail. Right. That's so you can still use your HDR as a base layer, and then these are just ways of getting better color and better detail into your shots.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's our episode for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to use the comment section to suggest topics that you'd like to see Wayne and I cover off in photo notes. And of course, as always, please subscribe to our respective channels. And we will see you at our next session. Wayne, thank you very, very much. And
thank you very much
for joining us. Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Take care, Wayne.
I'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.